All right, hopefully now I'm recording. So I think you all said you've got this. So I'm gonna jump back to the form1.cs file. All right, let's take a look at the code that's in there. And as always, if I'm going too fast or whatever, you'll have to let me know. Now, when we get done with this, it's going to be sometime around 9:30, I would guess. All right. What I'm going to attempt to do is I'm again trying to reinstall that Vital Source bookshelf where I can show you the book on screen. I'm going to try to do that, and if there's time today, I'll lecture on the next chapter. All right, and we'll do that, but we'll still be done sometime around 10:30 to 11. I still want to give you at least an hour per period where you can work on stuff yourself. All right, yourselves. All right, so here was the constant, and I actually don't need it here. I don't think well, maybe I use it here. I don't remember. But you'll notice I made all these decimals. So they work fine, even though they're decimals in here and they're floats in the other one. So that even worked. All right. So here's where I clear all the fields out. And again, as much as I could, I kept everything in here that we had before. So you should have all this stuff. You should have the update, validate description, validate hours to complete, validate hourly rate. You should have all of that stuff right now. I'm not asking you that. I'm telling you that. You should have that. So what I want to concentrate on is what changed. Okay, so again, you've got all this code. You've got all this code. There's nothing in here that's new, all right, as far as I know. So I'm going to jump down to where I think it is new. You can see how far down this is. And I'm trying to remember even what new code I put in here. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm wondering if this is the possible. I've got an old one in here. I don't know why. I'm getting 2 or 3 of these up on the screen all the time. And I don't really, for the life of me, I don't know why. There may not be any new code in here. I honestly, I don't remember. Sorry about that. But I don't notice any get. All right. I think what I'm going to do is this. And that is, I'm going to take a screenshot, several screenshots of this page, then of this page, etc., and I'm going to send them to you. I'll do that after class. You can look and see if any of your stuff has changed or has not changed, and I'll send that out to everybody. Does what I just said make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, because I'll go and look at it first to see, but I don't think I added any new code. I think I just put the class in, but I don't even think I'm using it. Unless, again, there's another, but that's it right here. And there's job. So I'll look at it and I'll get back to you on that. All right. Now I'm going to stop the share in just a second, but first I want to look here. And doggone it. what I'm trying to do is, of course, you know this, what I'm about to tell you, because it's happened in class. The system removed my vital source bookshelf. It's removed it, so I'm trying to reinstall it, and it's hung. It's just keeps spinning. In other words, it's not doing anything. All right. So but I am coming in here and I'm trying to reinstall it. Hey, I've got it back.
Can you scroll back up to the top on the job?
Yes, I will. I will in about 30 seconds. All right. On here or on the other one?
Yeah, on this one.
Probably I should have made these decimals here. All right, so I probably should have made these decimal. And here, which means I'll have to make them decimal there and there and there. All right. That actually, just because I should make sure that if I've got them decimal in the non-class file, that I have them decimal in the class file. That's all. Vice versa. Do you have what you need, Keegan?
Yeah.
All right. Let me make sure I didn't break anything with this. So, yeah, of course it says I did. Oh, that'll have to also, all of these will have to now be decimal. Decimal, not decimal, and decimal. Says the plus operator can, oh, so that means I'm also going to have to take the constant and make it a decimal. Any numeric field that's in here, make it a decimal. All right, that should fix everything. So let me save this. Let me run it again, make sure nothing's broken. Wash Windows, 3.5, 25, update, and it's still working. All right, clear, works, good. Again, I'll send you screenshots of both files just so that you have them. All right. And this one, they are already all decimal, so that's good. All right. Now I'm going to do a stop share on here and I'm going to do a start share. You got to tell me if this works. So I'm stopping the share here and I'm going to come in and try to start a new one. Return meeting. Oh, I hate this thing, how this works. Let's see. Share screen. All right. And I want to share. Oh, this isn't good. It's not, it looks like it's not possibly not going to allow me to do this. So I'm going to do it again. Yeah, that's fine. There we go. Share. All right. Do you see our book?
Yeah.
Yes.
How to work? Okay. So I'm going to talk about this now, not because I'm trying to waste my time or your time. We've got to go over the rest of these sections, so we might as well do it now. Some of this stuff, I'm sure that's in here, you're going to go, you already said that in class, and that's fine. All right. I think you know this, but in case you don't, I went back. If you go out to my YouTube channel and you look at the stuff for this class, I re-recorded a bunch of videos for chapter 12. I recorded videos for 13, not for 13, for 14, 15, and 16 based on the PowerPoints that came with the book. Now I'm doing it based on the book itself. So this chapter is on inheritance. Guess what? Inheritance means we're going to have more classes. All right, what does that mean? Well, I've given you an example of this already, but it's like if you think about it, for the bank, we had an account class, all right, for that bank login. Well, now we could have different kinds of accounts. We could have a savings account and a checking account, etc. That's what inheritance is all about. It says here it lets you create a class based on another class. All right. Inheritance is used throughout the .NET framework. We're going to use it in classes that we create. All right. By no later than Monday, and probably over the weekend, keep looking for emails from me if you would, because what I'm going to do is I will send you out the lab, the last one on object orientation. I'll send that out either this weekend or Monday before class, and we'll do it the same way. In other words, I'll give you time to work on it, and then we'll go over it as a class. Understood?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we get an intro to inheritance, skills you need to have working with inheritance. Then they go through an example with that product maintenance thing that we worked with before with inheritance. And then they have object types and casting and how to work with abstract and sealed classes. Okay. Now, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be doing this, but to be honest with you, I can send you, and I'm gonna email Evan and ask him how he's doing it. But if Evan says no, you're supposed to still give them written tests, then I'll have to email those to you as well. But any written test that I send to you, at a minimum, it will be due. At a minimum, it will be due a week after I email it out to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you'll have time to work on it. All right. So, as it says, inheritance allows you to create a class that's based on another class. How does it work? It sort of works like genetic inheritance. All right. So, for instance, if you look at my father, okay, you could say that my father was the parent class, I'm the child class. It's also known that as my father would be the base class, and I would be the derived class. I'm just giving you some of the verbiage that goes along with this, just so you know. All right. So if we look here, what this says is anytime that you have created a form, whether you realize it or not, you may have noticed this, you may not have, but when you look at your program, what it's going to say is it's going to say something like the name of your form, and then it'll say : system.windows.forms.form. What that means is, look on the screen here, you automatically get all this stuff anytime you create a form. You create a string called text, a Boolean called minimize box, a Boolean called maximize box, a close method, a show method, and a show dialog method. That's why when you see these, they're repeated down here because they're inherited. So what you typically do with inheritance is you add more stuff to it. And I think I've mentioned this in class. If you don't like some of the stuff that you inherited, so let's say you didn't like the close method, you could rewrite it and have your own close method. All right, so as they mentioned down here, down towards the bottom, inheritance lets you create a new class based on an existing class. All right, then as it says, the new class inherits the properties, the methods, and everything from the parent. A class that inherits is called a derived class or a child class or a subclass. It depends on the book you read. And the parent class is known as the base class, the parent class, or the superclass. So the child, the derived class, can add anything else that it wants to add. it can also take and change virtually anything the parent gave it. All right. So you're going to see all this stuff in just a couple minutes. So hopefully on the screen, you can see this big picture that's here. And what it's saying is object is the parent of everything. Everything that you create, all right, is either a child, a grandchild, a great-great-grandchild, etc. of object. So object is what's known as the root class. Object is the only class that has no parent. It's at the very top of the hierarchy. So if you looked at it in biblical terms, I guess, and if you said that the first person was Adam, that'd be Adam. All right, that kind of an idea. Hopefully that makes sense. As I'm going through this, if something doesn't make sense, please stop me. All right. So as it says, the .NET framework uses inheritance. You've been using it, you just don't realize it. All right. All right. I'm just going to try to give you the stuff in here that I think that is the most important for you. This is what you saw on that one of those first slides. This is the stuff that you get by default. So from you inheriting from that form class, you automatically get a toString, an equals, another equals, a reference equals, a get type, a get hash code, a finalize, and a member wise clone. And you might say, yeah, I get those, but I've never used them. We'll use the toString as we go on, and we'll look at some of the rest of them. All right. If you want a better explanation than what I gave you or what's shown in the chart here, then look down here. All right, down towards the bottom of the page. So how do you use inheritance? Look at this example. I guess I'm asking if you remember that example that we did, this product maintenance thing, where you put, if you remember, we had a box that came up, and inside of it, it had a list of all of our titles, and it had a product code, a product description, which was basically the name of the book, and a product price. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Now what they're saying is, hey, not only are we going to have books in this project, we're going to have software as well. So when you look at this, both books and software, all right, both of them from the parent, they inherit the product code, the product description, the product price, and a method called getDisplayText. But in addition to that, books have an author, software has a version. So that's what's different about each one of those classes so far, is that each one of them is added another member, author and version. So the author says that you can use inheritance in your application to create a generic base class. What the heck does that mean? Think about it this way. I mentioned to you before, think about a bank account, okay? And every bank account is going to have in it what? The first name, middle initial, and last name of the person who has the account. Their address, their city, their state, their zip, maybe a phone number. That's about 10 pieces of information. But hopefully you'd agree with me that anyone who opens any kind of bank account, you're going to have that information, whether it's a checking account, a savings account, or something else. All right. So what's different? What's unique about a savings account? Well, as far as I know, all savings accounts have some kind of an interest involved in them. If they didn't, why would you put your money in the bank if you weren't going to earn any interest? Some checking accounts allow you to get interest, some don't. But there are different things. For instance, my wife still writes checks. All right. You don't have checks for a savings account. You do have checks for a checking account. All right. All right. So the skills that you need for working with inheritance. All right. It says the code for a simplified version of the product base class. So this is what you have in product. Guess what? It's pretty much the same thing we looked at before, but now we've got our auto implemented getter and setter, and there's our get display method. You'll notice that all of that stuff that's in there, all of it that's shown is public. All right. So we're creating what's called a base or parent class right there. Everything's public, so it's available to any and all classes. If we made everything in here protected, it would be available to the parent and any of the child classes. Don't worry about the internal and the protected internal. As far as I know, they're very rarely, if ever, used. And private means it's only available. If I made these private, then I could only change them inside of this class. I wouldn't want to do that. I want to be able to have the child classes change these. Yeah, these are called access modifiers, as you can see. So how do you create a child class? All right, this is the key line right here. Did that come out blue on your screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that means that I want to create a class called book, which is a child of product. So automatically book gets all that stuff we saw before: a product code, a product description, a product price, and book also gets, all right, that get display text method. But notice what's new. Books have an author. This was not in the product class. This may, what I'm about to show you now, may be the hardest part of getting to learn this. Look at this line of code right here in blue. All right. What this says is, hey, this is my constructor. I'm going to pass in a product code, a product description, an author, and a price. And I'm saying, hey, parent, that's what base means. Hey, parent, you handle the code, you handle the description, you handle the price, and guess what? I'll handle the author. At least as an idea, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because we're going to go over an example in class, one that I've written. And it's a lot more, it's longer than this, but I'll probably end up sending it to you. I don't think it's worth us typing in. It just would take too long. All right. So a constructor of a derived class automatically calls the parent's constructor when you use that base thing. All right. It says you use the base keyword to refer to the base or parent class. You can also use the word override, and that's right here. And you use the word override when you want to change, when the child wants to change something the parent gave it. You've got to let the system know that you are doing what's called overriding what you get from the parent. That's what they talk about in here. All right. The next thing that's discussed in here is another one of these terms that may make sense and it may not make sense. So I'm going to give you an example, and hopefully at least you're going to find this example easier than the one that's in the book. All right. So I create, and I may have even given you an example. I may have said this in class before. I don't know. I'm going to create a class that's called animal. Are you with me? I'm going to create a class called animal. And I'm going to say that all animals, I'm going to keep it real simple. They all have just one thing in common. They all have a name. I'm just assuming every animal has a name, whatever it is. I don't care. But I'm going to assume that every animal can also speak. All right. So when we created that product class before, we had in there, if you remember, a product code, a product description, and a product price, and get display text. For my animal class, all I'm putting in there is going to be a string called name and a method called speak. All right. So now underneath, so that's my parent class. I now create a child class based off that parent, and I call it dog. That means that each dog has to have a name, and each dog has to be able to speak. When the dog speaks, let's just say it says bow wow, all right, as an example. Then I come down and I create another class called cat. And I base cat off of animal. That means that each cat must have a name and each cat must be able to speak. And I'm just going to say that it says meow. All right. So I can use a speak method with a dog. And if I set it up like I just told you, the system realizes that a dog says bow wow. If I use a speak method with a cat, the way we just set it up, it means the system is smart enough to say, oh, it's a cat, have it say meow. That's what polymorphism is. Poly means many, morphism means form. And what it means is you can use the same method name for objects of a different type, and the system knows how to invoke the right method based on the name of the object. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little bit?
A little bit.
All right. And again, if it doesn't, you're going to have to read the book. All right. So they go back to this thing that we were working on before. That's this thing. Hopefully you remember that. All right. But what's changed is in here. The only thing that's changed is now we've got this is the same form, or it could, it's the same form, and it has two radio buttons in it. If we click this radio button, then it says author over there. If we click this radio button, it says version here. Other than that, it works the same. But now it handles two different types of products. Previously, we only handled books. But now we handle software. So you'll notice up here, with the book, it puts the name of the author in parentheses. With the software, it puts the word version followed by the version number. All right. So what they're trying to show here, oh, great. We got 10 minutes. Good gosh. Is there any way I can upgrade here for free? Oh my gosh, sign up is free. Yeah. It's telling me to do all this stuff, and I don't know why. It has not done this before. So, all right. So we'll see if we can finish this in 10 minutes. I don't know if we can or not. All right. So here's the code for the product class right here. What's new? Basically nothing. This is the same stuff we did before. So the product class really hasn't changed. But now we've got the code for the book class, and it's that base thing I showed you before. So that's the code for the book class. And again, book inherits from product. And it has an author here and here. Other than the author, the software is the same, but instead of author, it has version here and here and here. But they work the same way. Whereas this one says the name of the author in parentheses down here, this one says the word version followed by the version number here. And I'm not going to say to you again, I didn't let you know, hey, we're going to go over this today. So I probably made it a lot harder for you. I apologize for that. All right. And here's where we can work with our list of products. So we can add, and it doesn't matter if we're adding, it'll add it to the right list. So it'll either add to our list of books or it will add to our list of software. All right. right. Again, I think this is going to make a lot more sense to you. Okay. I think at least it's going to make a lot more sense to you when we go over a more realistic example. But take a look at this, at the code that's in here, and you're going to have to tell me, yes, Jeff, that makes sense, or no, Jeff, that doesn't make sense. You're both smart enough to figure out right here when you look, this is what's going to fire if we click the button for the book, this right here, and this is what's going to fire if we click the button for software. All right. In fact, this is book, this is software, this is book, and this is software. This is if we're going to change something. This is if we're going to save it. All right. Object types and casting. This is probably the thing that you got to read the most. Look on the screen here. This allows you to check the type of an object, in this case, to see if it's a book. The other thing that you could put in there, you could put product in there, and you could put in there software instead of the word book. I don't know if you remember this, but I showed you examples of casting. Why do you have to cast? You have to cast so that when Visual Studio is working with products, it's working with apples and apples, not apples and oranges. So they talk about in here that some casting can be done automatically by the system. Other stuff, the system gets very confused if you try to cast. All right, last two things. Remember before I told you about a class called animal or a class called account? If I put the word abstract in front of it, then I can't new that class. In other words, I can't create objects based on that class. They're meant for other things to make objects out of. And if I decide I want a class that I don't want to allow to be inherited from, I make it sealed. So as it says in here, an abstract class is one that can be inherited by other classes, but you can't use it to create an object. In other words, it can't be instantiated. All right. And a sealed class is one that cannot be inherited. What I'm going to ask you to do, because we're out here, we're done with this one, so I'm going to stop it right here. But what I'm going to ask you to do for tomorrow, I want to say it quick before I get cut off. Look over chapter 14, the one we just went over, and start marking it up if you would. So if you have questions next week when we go into 14, I'll hopefully be able to answer them. All right. So for tomorrow, see what you can do with that number 2 that I sent you. All right. That number 2 on the homework, which was the store inventory. All right. If I finish with the pretest, I'll send it out to you today. All right. Otherwise, it'll be sent out to you first thing tomorrow morning. Please keep looking for your emails. All right. That's all I have for today. Any quick questions?
No.
Angie?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Maya, you never made it? Okay. All right. So there will be 2 of these videos out there on the YouTube channel later on today. All right. Thanks. See you tomorrow.